Welcome.
Thank you.
You state your name for the record, anyway.
Brody Bernardi, Monroe resident. I'm here to talk about Bel Air and the closing of it, or proposed closing of it. After last week or a few weeks ago, there was a bit of confusion as to what actually was going on with the property. My interpretation of everything I heard was that the property, the Turnpike does want it, and that their eminent domain wasn't ever mentioned, but I think it's just sort of in the background. My biggest goal in tonight and at the council meeting is for any proceeds from that, the sale of that property, to be held and used in the Parks Department. You're closing a park and a public pool, and I think it's only appropriate that that money gets reinserted back into the parks and possibly another public pool. It's an asset to the community that you may or may not be aware of, and if we're going to get rid of an asset like that and begin to, this money will never come back again. You'll never have an opportunity to spend money like this again on the Parks Department, and I think it's appropriate that that money stay in the park system in one way or another. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Eliza Beck.
Hi, Alyssa Beck, Trotwood Drive.
Alyssa, I apologize. I mispronounced your name.
So the first thing I'm going to do is read a letter from some elders in our community who can no longer be present. Charles Kubit Sr. and Virginia Kubit at 206 Alpine Village Drive, and Eric F. Kubit in Garden City on Snowball Drive. To members of Monroeville Council, we understand that the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission is planning to purchase the Bel Air Municipal Pool property to expand its road. We would like to know if the municipality of Monroeville plans to relocate the pool, which has been a popular destination for our tax-paying citizens for many years. If not, where would you suggest we provide our youth and elders a pleasant and safe venue for summertime activity? Has our evening and weekend evening swim vanished forever from concerned Monroeville taxpayers, and I've mentioned their names? P.S. It is my understanding that Bel Air Pool would have been able to operate through 2020. Is this true? Also, has this anything to do with the mineral rights? Who owns them? We can't help but feel lied to. Please be better. And I'm going to hand this in, that's handwritten from the elders. I wanted to bring up a few issues. One is if you have the answer to who owns the gas rights underneath the pool property at every layer. Were you able to find that out since last month's meeting? Anybody? Did anybody look into it?
We did. We're still exploring that.
And who are you exploring it with?
Mr. Ratcher.
We're doing a title search, and we're exploring to determine when those rights were severed, if they were, or if not. We don't believe we own the rights, but we think we can confirm that.
And you would tell us who owns them?
Yeah, if that information is available to us, we'll find out who owns
And how long does that take approximately?
Well, I'm still trying to get the documents back from the county, so that's kind of a wild card. I expect to probably have the documents back, I would say within a week to 10 days, given that we're in the, we're in the holiday period here.
The other question is, do you know what the gas company is doing on Route 22, where they were asking for what you first said, Mr. Ratcher, was an easement at last Citizens Night, and then somebody changed their mind and said they didn't need an easement, but that Mr. Little had the opportunity to make that decision for the citizens of the municipality to let People's Gas cross our property to replace a gas line. I'm wondering about what, if you explored what it is exactly about that gas line, what infrastructure is being put underneath the road.
I think it's at a very old existing gas line. Paul, you can help with this because I know you or your department had some conversations with them. And I think they needed the physical ability to walk across some of our property to get to the gas line. That was
So if
all
we-
they needed.
So if we didn't want them to walk across their property for whatever reason, we would have the right to say no?
Well, they could probably, under the Public Utility Code, then just do so without any courtesy, and we couldn't stop it, so.
Probably?
Yeah, they do have, no, they have rights under the Public Utility Code. What they typically try to do is say, hey, can we do this, instead of just doing it. But they do have the rights. They can get to that line with or without our consent.
Okay.
And Dr. Beck, I'm sorry, Mr. Hugus, if you could move on with your comments so we make sure you get your 5 minutes. That way we're not interrupting you. If you want to go through your comments, and then we can answer your questions once you're completed with your comments.
Okay, my name is Dr. Alyssa Beck. I'm a healthcare practitioner. Most of you up here know that, and I have been for my career, and I've worked for my career with children and adults that have learning-related visual issues that are on the ADD to autism spectrum often. This is exploding. Cancer is exploding. Ewing sarcomas are exploding in southwestern Pennsylvania. I'm extremely concerned with the health and well-being of the residents of southwest Pennsylvania. And I'm extremely concerned that fracking is at our door. Well pads have been confirmed 4/10 of a mile, actually, from where Bel Air Pool exists. And if we do not put proper setbacks in place and light and noise pollution requirements into our oil and gas ordinance, then if everybody in the room doesn't move from Monroeville within the next year or two, then we would all be remiss, because we would be putting ourselves in a situation of extreme pollution. And so I am asking, with all due respect, that you reconsider visiting our oil and gas ordinance, which is not, in my humble but really, on some levels, expert opinion that I'm not charging anybody here for. I would ask you to reconsider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Malia Clemens?
Do demerits.
My name is Malia Clemens, and I will be speaking on behalf of the Bel Air swim team and the Bel Air Community Pool. The Bel Air Community Pool should not be given up for the Turnpike because of the following reasons. This property is way too important to the citizens of Monroeville for socializing, having fun, and exercise. Being a member of the pool myself, I know how much the pool contributes to the community. It gives teenagers opportunities to swim, to teach swim lessons, and have a job during the summer. Bel Air also gives young children the chance to learn and swim, with the swim lessons being held at the pool. I am also a member of the Bel Air swim team. The friendships that I have made only in the past 2 years of being a part of the swim teams are friendships that I know will last. Respectfully, if the pool is being taken away, those friendships will soon come to an end, not just for me, for the whole swim team. In 2 years, I have realized that the swim team is more like a family, not just a team. On another point, I have mentioned that I have only been a part of Bel Air for 2 years, including this summer. I would be so upset to see Bel Air go away after just 2 years. I can't imagine how the people who have been members longer than me feel about the pool closing. On another hand, the swim team has held a multi-year championship. Please don't take that away from the swim team. In conclusion to my letter, please consider keeping Bel Air open to the public. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job, Malia. We have Aaliyah, is it Razian?
Yeah, good. Very good.
You okay? All
Yeah,
right.
very good.
Hello, my name is Aaliyah Rossian, and I am a 4-time champion swimmer from Bel Air Pool. I love Bel Air. I have been coming here basically my whole life. I have been on the swim team since I was 6, and coming to Bel Air is the reason why I started swimming. I feel like Bel Air could stay open for at least 2 more years because it will take the Turnpike a long time to widen it. Why can't we just make another community pool? Because a lot of families probably can't afford to go to a private pool. I have a lot of great memories at Bel Air, and so do a lot of other people. Don't close Bel Air. Just move it to a new spot, and then a lot of families will be happy. I don't know why it has to close because it barely touches the property. I am very glad that I got to swim at Bel Air. Please don't close the pool. Thank you.
Very good. Rand Warsaw.
Hi, my name is Rand Warsaw. I've known many of you for too many years. Not being disrespectful, but I'm getting up there in years. I moved to Monroeville in 1980 and have lived here continuously since 1985. My first experience with Bel Air Swim Club and the Monroeville Pool was in 1991. So I'm a longtime person. I've been involved in Monroeville baseball, Monroeville soccer, and Bel Air. And I can count on one finger the other times I've been here, and that was for Monroeville soccer. So this is something that's very important to me. Moving to Monroeville and deciding to raise a family in Monroeville, a municipal pool was a key consideration. I can afford to join a swim club. I choose to join a municipal pool because I prefer the atmosphere. There are many residents here who cannot afford a membership at a club, and they do pay as you go into the community pool. Taking away Bel Air and saying, well, we have community pools is not an equivalent in my mind. It just is not. It wasn't for me, even though I could afford to join a club when I moved to Monroeville. Some people don't have the luxury of making that choice. That's one of the 2 points I wanted to make tonight. The second point is I'm a businessman. And I've never been involved in an eminent domain case, but I know something about it. And there's a concept in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution that says that if an entity takes your land or your property, the person whose property, in that case would be a municipality, is entitled to equivalent and just compensation for it. There's a pool sitting on that property. An equivalent justification is not just book value, a depreciated value. It could be thought of it in one way, it could be book value. It can be full replacement value, somewhere between. It can be the acquisition value of an asset. And so what I'm saying is, in an eminent domain case, I feel, as all of you represent us, that you get fair and equivalent value and build an equivalent pool. That's all I ask. I want to cede my time to other speakers, and I want to thank you for hearing my points. And it's really nice to see some of you people again. And I got some new faces I'd like to meet. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brian Susko.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Johns. Good to see you. Council, I thank you for your time. I'll do my best to stay within 5 minutes. I may need to borrow one from somebody if that's okay, but I will keep it to the limit here. So after speaking with Kevin Search, the lead engineer from the expansion project from the Turnpike, the information I got was the appraisal came back for about $956,000, and the sale is planned to be finalized in September of this year. However, in 2019, the funding for the project was actually canceled by the Turnpike, and it's going to be revisited on an annual basis. So at the same time, the Turnpike's been very clear in their email communications that they are not threatening eminent domain. Is that a true statement, or is that a false statement?
That's a
True statement. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear, because a couple of my points are on that, and I'd like to not talk about it. So basically, as it stands today, the Turnpike Commission, they're going to probably approve funding in the near future. So it could be in 2020, it could be in 2025, or later, we're not sure. But until they do approve the project and have the means to implement the plan, the question I have is, why would we sell the land earlier than we have to? The main reason is, we're talking obviously financial reasons. It's been stated that Monroeville would like to use the funds for paving projects to help our aging infrastructure. Infrastructure is a valid concern of any municipality, trust me, I understand that. However, in my opinion, the sale of the land isn't the answer to that problem. To explain in a little more detail, in 2014, Mr. Little recommended to the council the Capital Improvement Program, which transfers $1 million from the general fund to the Capital Improvement Fund on an annual basis for 5 years. The same year, a tax increase of 1.569 mils was implemented, bringing in a steady revenue stream of an additional $3.3 million. That was the first large tax increase in 20 years, but a necessary evil. Unfortunately, to step on the sale of the sewage company in 2002, previous councils got into the habit of using those excess funds from that sale, which is over $12 million, to balance the budget at the end of each fiscal year. Mr. Little, to your credit, you did what you had to do in order to sustain the financial strength of the municipality as long as you could. However, have you stated in the budget documents, I apologize, balancing the annual budget with the revenue from the sales of the sewage company in 2002 is not a solid financial plan, which I'm paraphrasing your words, but I think we can all understand that part. In 2016, the budget report stated that the only solution to our failing infrastructure is an adequate, steady revenue stream. In 2017 and 2018, it was strongly recommended by Mr. Little that a 1 mil tax increase be approved to bring in an additional $2.3 million of steady revenue to help our aging infrastructure. The tax increase was not approved, so in 2018, we only paved 2.8 miles of road. To keep pace, according to the documents, we should have paved 7 to keep up to date. Again, 2017 and 2018 budgets state that the solution to the infrastructure problem is, again, a new steady revenue stream. Now, throughout 2018 and 2019, Monroeville focused on 3 areas to help the financial situation, including the general fund, which was collecting past due taxes, including business taxes, deferring the hiring of personnel, including police officers, and staying within the budget on other items. This worked well to the point in 2019 was the first time in 2 years that Mr. Little did not recommend raising the taxes by 1 mil. On top of that, the $1 million transferred from the general fund was earmarked for paving only, and that was to catch up for past year's limitations. This tells me a few things. Mr. Little is actually doing a very good job working within the constraints of an existing budget without a new revenue stream. Even without a new revenue stream, he has stabilized the budget for the time being. He sees what we're doing as a temporary fix, and I'm paraphrasing and quoting my own thoughts there. And he knows the answer, as stated, is an adequate, steady revenue stream. So as stated currently in the budget documents, it's not a solid financial plan for the future. The only solution for our infrastructure problem is, once again, a new steady stream of adequate revenue. A one-time amount of $956,000 based on the appraisal amount for the sale of the land, according with Bel Air Poll, is not the solution for the overall problem as stated. It's really a Band-Aid on a broken arm. The only form of adequate, steady revenue stream, as I see it today, unfortunately, is reinstating the recommendation of raising taxes by at least 1 mil. The only way Monroeville gets a new, steady revenue stream is through this means, as I see it right now. And I'm afraid that holding off on the 1 mil's increase won't last for much longer. You can't fake numbers, and the numbers are showing only solution to solve this problem in reality could be a tax hike. It seems what we've come close to exhausting other means. With all of that said, if we sell the land and use it for paving roads, next year we'll be sitting here and we'll have about 5 miles of new paved road when we use the money, and that's using fuzzy math based on the budgets of previous years. We'll be sitting here with the same infrastructure problems as this year. We'll have higher taxes, but now there will be no community pull and the sale of an asset that's been destroyed. We'd lose that asset and have the exact same problems as we do today. So the sale of the land is not a steady source of revenue. So I'm asking the council consider setting aside money for the sale that becomes final and for use for a new community pool area. There were plans discussed in the past about a Monroeville Park area for the pool. And in speaking of Monroeville Park, the park is one of the nicest places in Monroeville. It's fantastic. It has state-of-the-art ball fields, picnic space, walking trails, soccer fields, which my daughter plays for the U6 Monroeville Raptors. The park came with a $5 million investment that actually came from the sale of the sewage company in 2002. That was over $12.6 million, if I'm quoting correctly. So if we're looking at other means for the community pool, money is always part of the equation. So one idea would be considering is the DCNR actually has grants to help with funding of community pools. In 2018, Brentwood got a grant for about $687,000 to put towards a community pool. So once again, using fuzzy math, if we take the sale of the land and work with the DCNR for funding, we're close to that $2 million already, and I understand this is all just speculation at this point. Another way would be sponsorships. For example, we have two of the largest healthcare companies in the area competing for community support, and reaching out to them for sponsorships would be a viable alternative for the entire project. I know these are all easier said than done, but these are viable solutions, and I will wrap up, I promise. So as it stands today, it seems there's no legal reason Monroeville has to sell the land to the Turnpike Commission this year. And with the budget constraints and the need for a new steady revenue stream to really solve the aging infrastructure problem, there's no financial reason to sell the land to the Turnpike either, as the real solution to the problem is a sustained revenue stream, has been quoted with the budget documentation. So the community pool is one of the options that we have here for low-income families. Groups that use it are groups of special needs. The School of the Deaf has an outing there every year, daycare groups. And according to Representative Brandon Markosik, Monroeville offers Cadillac services when it comes to the communities and the public offerings that we have, and other communities really want to copy us. And the sale of a public space like that in a community pool would detriment that view that other communities have on us. And as stated in the budget report, the worry of the failing infrastructure would lower home values and cause families to leave or not come in the first place. So it seems like the sale to solve the infrastructure problem that wouldn't solve the infrastructure problem would still be causing the same problem that we're trying to solve. So in 2017, the comprehensive annual financial report, as it was stated. You
could wrap it up, Brian, please.
I will.
Of other speakers.
The population growth of folks of the age 20 to 34 grew by 7% over the past 5 years, with an expected growth of 8% by 2020. With this demographic comes young families and children that would benefit from the community pool, and the loss of such a resource would deter them from coming here at all. So it really, in the end, what I'm really trying to say is the solution to selling the land and putting it into the infrastructure is a temporary Band-Aid that I think if we're looking at the numbers, it's not going to solve the problem and we're just going to come back. So I urge you to really think about taking the money from the sale of the land when and if it happens. If it could be held off by until next year, that would give us the time to look into DCNR grants, to look at sponsorships, and then I would also urge you to keep those funds into a separate account where we can spend time to figure out what we want to do with those funds in the future. And I apologize for going over time. I thank you for your time.
Candace Bruno.
Thank you very much. I'm Candace Bruno. I'm a resident. Hi. People were talking about the pool and just saying that the pool's here. I just wanted to speak about the pool and the things that it does for our community. I'm a member of the Monroeville Community Pool. My son swims on the swim team, so this is pretty important to my family. The Monroeville Community Pool enriches the area in so many ways. This summer, the pool employs 17 young adults ranging from 14 to 22 years of age. For most, this is their first experience being employed, and for all of them, it's pretty much their last summer job before they set off into the real world. Most of the times, they are role models for our young swimmers. They then go off to become police officers, nurses, engineers. We have an occupational therapist that is working at the pool also. While they're there, they have positive relationships with our young kids. They want their turn to sit in the chair someday. My son is looking forward to someday being a lifeguard or working at the concession stand. Unlike some of the other private pools, you do not have to be a member of the pool to work there. You just have to fill out an application. Last year, there were about 35 parties that were scheduled at the pool. This includes birthday parties, graduation parties, and even church picnics. Some families just rent the shaded picnic grove for an afternoon for their families. There were also 10 after-hour parties where the pool was rented from 8 until 11 o'clock at night. There are volleyball courts where kids play volleyball together in the sand. And there are already 20 parties booked for this season. And people were calling today when I was there. During the day, you can see many groups of young people gathered. The Monroeville Parks and Recreation's Touch the Earth Day Camp spends every Friday at the pool swimming with their peers. Their parents drop them off and pick them up directly from the pool. The pool is also a gathering place for Camp Chippewa and has been for many years. I know that there are people who have retired teachers, long since retired teachers, who took Camp Chippewa students there. Camp Chippewa is a summer camp for kids ranging from 6 to 21 who have mental or physical impairments. The Supporting Hands Learning Center, located in Monroeville Mall, brings approximately 25 children and 4 adults to the pool at least 3 times a week. They normally come Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, but since it was 90 degrees today, they were there today also. They had so much fun playing in the pool. The pool also hosts the So Long Summer Camp and the American Red Cross's Learn to Swim programs. The outside community also uses the pool to host fundraisers, such as the Little Fox Toby's Foundation that brings awareness to SIDS. They had an event there last year. The Boy Scouts of America also uses the pool to certify and test for badges. The School for the Deaf also holds a picnic at the pool once a year, and all of these programs and organizations will need to be rehomed after the sale of the pool. For the 2018 season, there were about 100 passes that were sold, which equals about 300 members. About 25% of those people are actually non-residents who choose to come to Monroeville. They give us their money to come here because they live in communities that don't have pools. This money goes to the pool and the community. When you ask them, they'll tell you that they come to Monroeville because of the welcoming people at the public pool. Also, along with the members, the pool also admitted over 8,800 people who paid just to walk in. The value that this pool brings to the community cannot be measured by profit, but by how it brings such a diverse group of people together. If the sale of the pool is unavoidable, what can we do as a community to replace what's being taken away from us? We know that after the pool is sold, the Turnpike is not going to do anything with the land for years. Is there a way that we can continue to use the pool and the property while we all, the Turnpike included, makes the plans? We can gather sponsorships, go out into the community. Like it was said earlier, we have 2 hospitals that love to put their names on things. So we can gather sponsorships and add to the $900,000 that the pool will get. So that's all I have. I hope that you consider helping us out. We love our pool.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's everyone that I have signed in, but if anyone else would like to address council, you can approach and sign in and state your name for the record. We ask, this is for Monroeville residents, Monroeville taxpayers only.
Okay, my name is David Mintz, Monroeville resident. Actually, my family moved here in 1975, so long-time Monroeville resident who actually, for some of the reasons everybody was just talking about, Bel Air Pool is where I had my swim lessons when I was a child. The financial constraints about joining a private pool at the time made the community pool a great place to have my sister's swim lessons. So I really do support everybody who just came up, and I hope that they are successful in saving the pool for as long as possible. The pool itself being, as you know, close to something that I've been talking about for several years now with the council, as you would expect I would bring up. The well pad called the Deutsch well pad in just over the border from the Bel Air Pool, about at most 0.4 of a mile away, is being held up now because of the work of one of our fellow, with Sustainable Monroeville, one of our fellow groups, Protect Penn Township, Protect PT, is working on that. If that pad does go in, and the wells do go in only 0.4 of a mile from a pool that I hope we do save for our community to keep our community a nicer place, that would not be ideal, to say the least. One of the things as a community that we could do, as we've spoken about a lot, is do additional work on top of what we've done already. What we have done already, just to remind, this is a bigger audience than we almost ever have in these chambers, so I just want to say that over the last couple of years, working with the council, what we have been able to do is amend the December 11th, 1984 oil and gas ordinance that Monroeville has. We amended the use tables, so we, with the council obviously, the use tables so that the modern unconventional oil and gas drilling that's popularly known as fracking or hydraulic fracturing is now limited only to the M2 industrial areas of Monroeville rather than all of the zones of Monroeville as previously was stated in our use table. But on top of that, what I've come up here many times asking about is updated regulations, restrictions, basically protections for our community in that December 11th, 1984 ordinance, which did not address this subject. It addressed the old-style gas drilling that we've had for over 100 years, obviously, in this area. Now, when I've come up to ask about that work to update our ordinance, the answer that I've been given all along was that we're waiting for some cases in Pennsylvania, some court cases to be settled. This has been going on. Now, don't quote me on the exact amount of time, but I've probably been asking this question well over a year. So I guess my first question is, have any of those cases been settled? Is it helping us to decide to move forward? And if they haven't, which cases are we waiting for, and why are we waiting? And to add on to that is that our group has worked, along with the work that Mr. Ratcher already did on an ordinance update that was eventually pulled from consideration because there were changes made in it to change the area from M2 industrial to a conservancy area, which is under our Monroeville landfill. So we didn't want that. We wanted to keep it in M2 industrial. Eventually that updated ordinance with new restrictions that Mr. Ratcher worked on was pulled from consideration, which we didn't want that one because it was changing the fundamental change that we finally achieved. But we have worked on, with Mr. Ratcher's work that he already did, we have worked on an ordinance that we could submit, we could sit down, and we could just move forward on this before things happen that then become out of our control. And I guess my main question is, we've waited a long time, or what specific court cases in Pennsylvania are we waiting for, and can we move ahead even while waiting for those cases? But I've never been told specifically what cases we're waiting for and why. Okay, and so we can have that answer question. That
Yeah, do you have
question
any other
answered
comment
today.
you want to make?
Okay, and one more comment is that the idea that we were waiting for those cases, this will be my last comment, the idea that we were waiting for those cases, obviously I have a question about, but after observing I'm not sure if it was the citizen or the council meeting of June, but there was a section, when I observed it on our YouTube that we can watch it on, it seemed that I was getting a little bit of a different tone when the question was brought up. I wasn't present, but when I watched it, it sounded like maybe some of the council people, and I'm hoping I misunderstood, specifically, if I misunderstood, please tell me, Ms. Gatos and Mr. Poach had said that it sounded like what they were saying was that they were satisfied with the current ordinance that we have, which, as I'll say for the third time, is from December 11th, 1984, and that basically we're just satisfied right now, and like nothing's, there's no nothing moving forward because we're satisfied. And I thought we were really just waiting because we were waiting for some cases. So maybe I can get some answers to those questions.
Okay. You have the comments now at this point?
Sure,
Okay.
yes.
Well, a couple things. The change that we made, I forget the date, you mentioned it earlier actually, where we made it restrictive to M2 industrial.
Right.
Then there was, as you mentioned, there was another ordinance that was actually more restrictive because it was going to S Conservancy, which is only one zone in Monroeville. There are 3 M2 industrial zones in Monroe, but as far as acreage, that is a smaller, more restrictive zone, was S Conservancy that we have in Monroeville. But we did, like you said, we pulled that, and there was pros and cons to both, and council was fine with leaving it at M2 industrial, which does Act 13, which regulates Marcellus Shale drilling in Pennsylvania, requires a community to have at least, you can't just ban fracking, so you have to have some spots to do this in. So I guess maybe to your question about what ended up happening, we tried to put a different ordinance in. There was some backlash from yourself and some people that
Sure,
were advocates
absolutely.
for it or against it, and we decided to pull it. So I think that's probably why, the main reason why something new hasn't been approached, because at this point, we tried to do something, it was rejected, so now we're in a holding pattern with our M2 industrial. Now, if you have documents that you would like to present to us, I mean, I would be happy to take them and we can go over them.
Yeah.
And as far as court cases that we're waiting, I think we're always looking for, what's happening in the state. And Mr. Ratcher, are there specific ones right now that we're?
Well, let me just back up a minute, because what my recollection of all this is that you, and I think it was even you, David,
Yes.
came up and said, relative to the new ordinance that we had proposed, let's hold up on everything because we're waiting to hear about a couple of cases. You were. I think you were waiting to hear about Gorsline and Frederick. And I think the reason you're waiting to hear from them, and I don't mean this disrespectfully,
Sure.
I think you thought that the courts were going to do a lot more with the application of the Environmental Rights Amendment than they actually ended up doing.
Right.
So that really is what stopped it,
Okay.
from my point of view.
So those were the cases. So then, I mean, if
Yeah, and those cases are over with.
they're over with, okay,
Yeah.
so then I guess if I can respond, if I have the time to respond, is that, with all due respect, the difference between the situation we have as we speak today and the new ordinance wasn't just the change from M2 to S1, which we didn't want. We wanted to keep it in M2, but what Mr. Ratcher had done and what we've also worked on are protections for light pollution, sound pollution, setbacks. There were a lot more protections for the community if it even stayed in M2 rather than moving to S1. So that's kind of like two different things, apples and oranges. So if we just keep it at M2, the industrial area, but still have the extra regulations that are above and beyond what we have today, those would, the community would be definitely more protected than it is as I speak right now today without moving it to S1, which for various reasons, including who owns the gas leases under the, that's a whole other subject. But it's not really a whole other subject, but we don't have that much time. If we keep it in M2 as was agreed to by this council, don't move it to S1, but have increased setbacks that are more supported by science than what we have right now, increased protections for light pollution for people that would live near one of these wells, for sound pollution, things like that Mr. Ratcher worked on, and we're in that. But the reason we pushed back was because it was changed from what we had worked together with people from Food and Water Watch and Mr. Little, moving it so that it was just M2 industrial. That was the big change that we've had so far. To move it to S1 was another giant change that we didn't want that change, but we just wanted some additional protections.
Well, this is worth reconsidering and maybe bringing it back. And Mr.
Yeah.
Little, if you could maybe meet with Mr. Ratcher and maybe get an update of where our current ordinance is and what are some other things that we can do that are within the confines of Act 13, and then present it to council for consideration. Okay? Thank you, David.
Okay. Could,
That will not be on the agenda for Tuesday.
okay.
Once again, there's no one that's signed in front of me, so if anyone would like to address council, you could approach now and sign in. And just state your name for the record. You're a Monroeville resident.
My name is Julio Estremera, and live in Alpine Village.
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you. So during I was here at the last council meeting, and I forwarded an email to council on June 17th, and I'm hoping that everyone did receive it. Basically, to summarize it, a little bit of some of my observations from that meeting, as well as perhaps a suggestion as to what we could do in terms of filling the void when the sale of the community pool actually goes through. And I don't know if everyone read the email and saw the suggestion that I made. And I don't know, I guess the question that I have, are those suggestions viable options that the municipality can look at in terms of?
I read your email, but if you could maybe just touch on the points for everybody here. And
Sure. So there's 4 pools in Monroeville, 4 private pools in Monroeville. 2 of those pools happen to lease land that the municipality owns. And I don't know the intricacies of the actual lease agreement. But there's 2 pools that don't actually own the land that the pools sit on. So my suggestion is that, Monroeville would look at acquiring one of those pools and utilizing the funds from the sale when the sale of the land and the pool is actually executed, whenever that takes place. And rather than, if a new pool, but before I go forward, now that, after Brian spoke and brought his ideas, I kind of like his idea as well. But the funds that are acquired through the sale, would it and could it be an option to go after one of those pools and enhance their facility with those funds to improve it and make one of those the community pool? And that was pretty much, what I was inquiring with the email. And I don't know if it is an option. The other question the other questions that I have, is there a team in place or a committee that's drawing up or working with others, to come up with these alternatives or these plans? How can members of Monroeville, the citizens of Monroeville, how can members of Bel Air pool be involved in this process? Is that a possibility? And lastly, the last thing I'd like to say is that, I expressed my desire during the last meeting that there be a plan in place prior to accepting the sale and executing the sale. So the last thing I want to say, if I could coin the phrase, if there's no plan, there should be no sale. So,
Thank you. You okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, a couple things. Well, let me, you know what we want to do? I want to keep the floor open for comments, and then, yes, we'll touch on some of these questions that are coming up, and we'll go through everything here. But does anyone else would like to address council at this point? Now would be your chance. Once again, you will get another opportunity a week from today at the Tuesday council meeting. You could speak about any municipal item, so if it's about the pool, that'll be on the agenda. You can certainly speak before a vote is taken. Absolutely. There will be no vote taken this evening. We do not vote at this meeting tonight, so there will be no votes taken. So if anyone wants to leave early, nothing's going to happen. We won't do it. But we will be voting a week from today. You'll have an opportunity to speak prior to that meeting. At the end of that same meeting, after votes are taken, and actually we go through, we just don't vote on this one item. We have a lot of things we go through. But after that meeting has gone through, you'll once again have another opportunity to speak about any municipal item. Okay? So seeing no further comment, we're going to close that portion of the meeting, and we'll move over to our agenda-setting meeting. And prior to getting into this, I just want to touch on a couple things here. So just so everyone's aware, as far as what council will be considering next Tuesday is if we enter into the agreement to sell the pool. It does not dictate where that money is spent or how it's spent or anything along those lines. That is something that council will consider as we move forward. There has been a committee that was set up by the deputy mayor. It's myself, Mr. Harvey, Mr. Poach. Mr. Little is also involved. We will be meeting with all of the private pools in Monroeville. Also, another pool in Monroeville is the Jewish Community Center. We have met with them as well. And there are other pools in Monroeville as well, albeit not exactly what we're talking about here. But the high school does have a pool, and certainly the wave pool is also in Monroeville. But as far as the four private pools, Haymaker, Swim Club, Gateway Heights, Park, Swim Club, and Garden City Pool. Yes, there are four. Monroeville does own the property for two of those. Nothing is off the table by any means. I have spoken with a few board members and also some of the presidents of the pools, but what we're going to be doing is having a formal meeting with the presidents of each of those pools and board members, both individually at their sites, and also we're going to have a group meeting as well and come up with solutions here. We are going to make every effort between this council, my office, the manager, our Recreation and Parks Department, to replace everything that potentially would go if, by chance, council decides to sell the pool to the Turnpike. We certainly understand all of the camps that are there, the swim club, the rentals, and we will make every effort to accommodate those, and we are close to accommodating a lot of those items already. However, there's no formal plan because this is going to take some time on all of our parts, but also, too, we have not agreed to the pool yet, to selling the pool. This is a vote that is taken a week from today. And if that does happen, that's when we really that's when the funds will be decided on where they're spent and what the plan would be, because we wouldn't make a plan for something that is not happening. So we have a week to decide. Next week is whenever council will consider to vote either to sell the pool to the Turnpike, to not sell, or they could table the ordinance once again as they did this previous month. So with that, once again, you will have another opportunity to address council a week from today at our regular council meeting where this ordinance will be considered, and it'll also be on our agenda this evening as we move through our meeting.